Hey guys, so today we're gonna work on a recipe that comes to us from this cookbook that I got called Milk Bar Life by Christina Tosi. And the last time that you saw me, I made a recipe of chocolate chip cookies from this cookbook. And as I was looking for something else to teach you guys how to make, something caught my attention. And that was a recipe for these things right here called chicken puffs. So Thanksgiving is coming up next week, and what happens after Thanksgiving? A ton of leftovers, a ton of turkey that your parents are probably gonna force you to eat day after day, but it doesn't have to be boring. It can be super exciting, and you can take that leftover turkey meat and turn it into chicken puffs. Think of them like chicken hot pockets. Now, the original recipe calls for you to use chicken, but you can use turkey, chicken. I imagine you could probably use ground up pork or beef, whatever you got at home. And the recipe is super simple. All you're really gonna need to do is get a couple of ingredients to make this happen. So let me show you what you're gonna have to get yourself. First of all, you're gonna have to get yourself 4 ounces of cream cheese. So buy a block of cream cheese, divide it in half, and you got 4 ounces. You're also going to need 1/4 cup of green onions like these. You can also use shallots if you are familiar with those. You're definitely gonna need to use a bunch of leftover chicken. This is about 3/4 cup of chicken. Just measure it out and make it go 3/4. So it's leftover chicken that I had laying around. You're also going to need a cup of breadcrumbs. Now you can buy breadcrumbs at the store. Make sure that you buy Italian herbed breadcrumbs that are seasoned to taste like, seasoned with Italian seasoning. Now I have my own that I made by myself, so I'm trying to use these up, but you're gonna need about a cup of those. You're also going to need a teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, which I've already pre-measured right here. And finally, you're going to need the most important ingredient. Let me go get it. You're gonna need a tube of one of these babies. These are Pillsbury crescent rolls that you find in the grocery refrigerated aisle. Oftentimes you'll find them at Thanksgiving as your dinner roll. And we're gonna take these and make our chicken puffs out of them. So let's take a look at how to make this recipe, and hopefully you'll make it on your own. So to begin working on this recipe, you're first gonna have to turn your oven on to 350 degrees and get your oven preheated for about 20 to 25 minutes so that when your rolls are ready to go, they're ready to throw into the oven. Secondly, you're also gonna wanna grease a cookie sheet. So whatever cookie sheet you have laying around, grab it and take some non-stick cooking spray and spray it all over it. So this is gonna be my cookie sheet right here that I'm gonna use. Now I'm not gonna go ahead and spray this because I actually have a bunch of these sheets of parchment paper that I'm gonna go ahead and put on top of it so that things don't stick. And this just makes my life a lot easier. So as far as the actual filling, so you first gotta work on the filling for your chicken puffs. Now in this bowl right here, as you can see, I've already put 3/4 cup of just chicken that I had left over. I've also put in the 4 ounces or half a block of cream cheese in here, as well as a teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. The final thing that I need to do to complete the mixture is throw in 1/4 cup of green onions. So I'm gonna do that, and I am going to get to mixing this thing. So I'm gonna just take a spatula right here and start mixing this all together. Now the one thing that you wanna make sure that you do when you're mixing your filling is to make sure that your cream cheese is at room temperature. Now what that means is whenever you buy a stick of cream cheese, it is really cold and really hard to work with. If you leave it out for several hours before you make your recipe, it'll be a lot softer and a lot easier to mix everything together. Everything will be a lot smoother, and your entire filling will be easier to work with. So make sure you do that. That's one thing that I failed to mention to you. So make sure that every piece of chicken is coated with salt with pepper, with green onion, and the cream cheese, and everything gets a little extra love in, so that when it does bake, the end product is gonna be gooey and melty and really delicious. So I think you can tell, it's a pretty good job. I've mixed all my filling, and now I am ready to start working with my crescent rolls. So, as I said, you're gonna need one of these right here. Now, they scare me, because in order to open them, you have to take like a spoon and you have to press up against it until you hear like a pop, and then you can begin to unpackage the crescent rolls in here. So let's see how I do with this. And then it says press spoon at seam until can pops. Oh, it wasn't that bad today. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. Now I'm gonna tell you from past experience that it's a lot easier to work with this dough if it's really cold. So make sure that this is really cold so that when you uncurl it, it's not gonna give you any problems. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this off to the side, and I'm going to uncurl my dough like this, and each little thing that I uncurled should give you about 4 of these triangles like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of separate them so that we have what looks like 4 different triangles like this. So if you can see, I got 4 of them right there, right? The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my mixture and I'm gonna divide it evenly. I know that I'm gonna end up with 8 of these, so just doing some basic dividing here. I'm gonna take my mixture right here and I'm gonna divide it in half, I guess, like that. That looks about right. And then I'm going to divide this into quarters, just so that I give every little triangle enough filling. And then with each, I will just kind of make little indentations so that I know I have 8. And I know it doesn't look like anything to you, but I'm gonna hopefully keep track of that. So I'm gonna take my first little chunk right here, and I'm going to place it onto my crescent roll right here. And as you can see, I'm gonna kind of like form it into a little ball. And then what I'm gonna do is I am going to wrap the dough around the chicken. So here's what that looks like. You wrap it around so that it is fully covered, like this, right? And then you're going to roll it so that you get that really crescent shape that you want, right there. Boom. I got my first one. It's not perfect, but there it is. And then I'm gonna kind of overlap the sides, and then I'm gonna put this onto my baking sheet. So I'm gonna go ahead and do more of these, and I'll show you what the end of the assembly looks like. All right, so I finished rolling all of my crescent rolls, and I wanna show you what they look like by right there. They're not pretty, but you're gonna find out that the uglier they are when they go in, the prettier they are when they come out of the oven. Now we're not done yet. What we're gonna do is I've taken a plate and I put all of those breadcrumbs that I showed you earlier into it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take each one of our crescent rolls that we created, and we're going to roll them in the breadcrumbs before we put these in the oven. This is just gonna add more crunch to the crescent rolls, and it's gonna give it a bit more flavor because there are Italian seasonings in here. Again, if you buy breadcrumbs with Italian seasonings, it's going to heighten the flavor, if you get what I mean. So you go ahead and you roll it like this, and you get kind of one that looks like that, right? Put it on the cookie sheet and then repeat with the rest. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on that now. All right, so now I have each one of these rolled out with breadcrumbs, and all that's left to do now is put them into the oven. The oven was set at 350 degrees, and these will need to bake for about 15 minutes. Check them at 15 minutes, and if they need to be a little bit browner, leave them in for a few more minutes, but 15 minutes should do it. You wanna make sure that these are golden brown. Let's go ahead and put these in. All right, they are finally out of the oven, and let's take a look at how they look. Here you go. I know it's hard to see, but this is what the crescent rolls look like. They're really hot, but you get the idea. They need to cool for a few minutes before you serve them, but we'll try them out in a second. All right, so they're finally done. Here is them on a plate. As you can see, they look pretty good, you know? Let's go ahead and try one. That's fantastic. We need to make these. They're really hot.